Alright, so this is my Spacewalk server. It in of itself isn't really that impressive, but if we come over here to the site that it actually connects to, you can see a bit of what it does. So when you do a fresh install of an operating system, it doesn't have updates, it's missing most of its key packages, and during the installation it'll open up a lot of different prompts for you to input information like what country you're from, things like that, and how you want it set up. It's not that bad if you only have to do it once or twice ever, but if you run a large network and you're taking down nodes and bringing them up and putting in new machines and new servers and things like that, you'll probably be doing it quite a bit. But you want to make sure that they all have the same packages and all the same information. So that's what Spacewalk does, is it lets you customize your installs to that. So after you set up the server, which involves downloading and extracting the different packages and EPLs required, you're prompted to make a database and host all the data and answer a few questions. And after that, you can actually come to the site that it launches. It's launched based on the host name and domain of the server that you're running it on. On the site, you go through and set up the OS as you want hosted. In this example, I'm using a CentOS 6.8. And then you load into it the packages that you want installed on the original creation. Like here I have the updates, the EPL package. I actually don't have any of the EPLs on here in this particular example, so you can see that there are 0 of the files loaded onto the systems. And that's just because there's like 12,000 different files for that. I don't really need any of those. Most of the things that I download, they have their own packages or their own EPLs, and it's one file at a time, so it's much easier to do that and customize it than it is to download and have 12,000 additional files for every upload. But the Spacewalk client here, it's actually what allows the client nodes to report back to my Spacewalk server and show that they're connected and that they're reporting. But after you upload all that information, you can make a kickstart file. And give me a moment, I'll pull up the kickstart file here. So here's my kickstart. It's for the original base 6.8. You go through and you put in all the information for your network and how you want the package created. You put in your network information, or in case you want to do VM launches, you can put in your information for whatever the virtual machine hypervisor that you're using, like KVM or VMware and things like that, and it'll actually do launches onto, it's considered bare metal, but it's not. It'll make them on your virtual host. But you go through all the options, you set it up, you tell it what packages you want included. You can add different softwares that you want included to it as well. Like here, I have a bunch of different packages, like the ones I said I didn't download in the EPLs. I downloaded the individual packages instead so that it'll actually upload those. And then it spits out for you a kickstart file. If you have the network set to network boot, it actually pulls this file from your network boot. I don't have that because there are some machines that I don't want to try to pull that information whenever I'm bringing them back up or removing data. So what I've actually gone ahead and done is I've set this up on my website, and whenever I create a new virtual machine, I just have to put in the information from that on the website, and I'll actually go ahead and make one of those for you, and we'll check out how that works. Give me a moment. Let me pull this up. We want to create a new one. In this instance, it's a lot easier to try to go through this since we're not doing a network boot and we're not doing a network install. Even though it is coming from an HTTP, it won't register it as a network install. What we want to actually go ahead and do is do a local media install, and we're going to use an ISO that I already have on here. It's going to be CentOS. So it's going to say it doesn't recognize it. It doesn't really matter. The RAM doesn't really matter in this instance either. I mean, I'm going to bring down this machine afterwards. We'll call it generic. How about that? It'll be a nice, good generic name. And so it'll bring it up. And we're actually going to exit out. We want to tell it that it's a Linux system, and how we want it to come up is we want it to be a kickstart. And we want that kickstart to be equal to http jasonnowalk.me and then /kickstart.cfg, and that's my configuration file. And let's make sure that that's going to come up correct. I can't remember if this needs quotes or not. Let's hope in this example that it does not. Yeah, it shouldn't. So give it a minute. It's going to load up all of these things, and then it shouldn't ask me for any additional information. It should just pop up and tell it that it pulls the information. So this is where it's going to configure my internet and make sure that it's reading the file. And right now, it's actually looking to my DNS server to get the IP address, and that DNS server is going to connect to my Spacewalk server because my Spacewalk server is hosted through my DNS, so my network can actually communicate to it. So that's pretty cool, because as we can see in this file over here, whenever you do the kickstart, even though I'm hosting the kickstart on my site so that I can access it and change any information I want, it's still pulling these packages and these repos from my from my Spacewalk server. So it still has to communicate to it in order to get that information. And we can tell that it's retrieving the exact same information because of the names that it just said. The names that just popped up before that are the same ones that correspond to these names over here. So it'll take just a minute, but as you can see, I can do this completely unattended. It'll just run through all of the options and it'll load up the file, and then after it's done, it'll process its own reboot, and then it'll be ready for me to log in as the root whenever it's all completed. So it'll take just a minute. So we can see here that it skipped all of the update prompts and it went directly into downloading the operating system without selecting any of the information or asking me which type of version I wanted to include, because I've already configured that in the file that was made, this kickstart file. So it just runs right through the installation. But while this is loading, we can take a look at another piece that this actually does. Whenever you go through the devices, you can actually check the systems that are connected to it on the, or that are reporting back. At the moment, I only have 2 of them that are reporting back because they're the only 2 that are launched for this. They're the ones that are up, but it's giving them both localhost.local domain names because those are the names that are originally given to this. You can configure it to change those, but it's not necessary in this example. So later, if you go ahead and change the host name and the domain name, it'll report back to which ones are launched that way. And this is almost done. It's got just a minute left to go, but this shows all the information. It tells the base channel, which was what we originally set up over here, the CentOS, that had all of this loaded in it. And it'll be up and running in a minute. It'll reboot itself and then be ready for my login. All right, and we can see here where it says the Spacewalk Services daemon has launched. It's actually making the connection back to my Spacewalk server. After this is installed, we may be able to see it come up on the other page that I was just showing you with the 2 machines. It should now show 3. So let's check. Let's check and see if that's up there currently. Go to systems, and yep, there we go. There's 3, and here's the one that's currently up to date. It's the one that I just finished launching. All right, and it's done its reboot, so it should be ready for me to log in just a second. And if everything worked as planned, yep, there we go. So we're going to log in as root. We are in. It shows that it was kick-started today. And then to show that everything should be up to date, we just do a yum update, and it should say everything's up to date. There we go. No packages marked for update. That means everything is current as of today. That means all packages that were in the last update for CentOS, the EPELs, and the Spacewalk client are up to date. It cannot pull any newer information. So that's how that one works. It'll launch all the machines that you need based on a certain profile that you have and make sure that they're completely up to date so that you don't have to do any additional updates after they're done.